The American economy was greatly affected by the Great Depression and World War II, which were the most important events of the 20th century. The federal government was able to control economic activity and to partially control the economy through spending and consumption. After a long period of neglect during the Great Depression, American churches went through a revival following World War II. The membership of churches reached highs in America, and thousands of new worshippers were formed. Approximately 43% of public U.S. citizens attended church before the war. By 1950, more than 55% were members of religious groups, and would later increase to 69% by the end of the 1950s. Developments in nuclear physics in the late 1930s had successes in the development of the atomic bomb in the early 1940s. German physicists Lise Meitner and Otto Hahn invented the term nuclear fission in 1939 to describe the new nuclear reactions they observed in their research with uranium, learning that the U-235 element of uranium could be split into lesser atoms when its center was blasted with slow-speed neutrons, making probable a chain reaction in which big quantities of energy were made. American scientists soon used this finding to their own studies. By 1940, physicists in the United States had 20 cyclotrons and a dozen other kind of nuclear accelerators of different types. Several accelerators were working for medical reasons, mainly for the making of harmful elements, but nearly all were used some of the type for nuclear studies linked to the bomb. There were two key places communists got tangled in World War II. The first was Russia. They were a friend in the battle against the Nazis. The second was the underground movements in working countries. Since communists were expelled by the Nazis, they already had an organization of top secret chambers and interactions organizations. Russia invented the Molotov cocktail and other guerrilla fighting techniques. Some of them were very brave and took terrible risks in the underground combat. They also gave them some main locations when the war was over, and they took extreme benefit of the detail. Women designers from 1939 to 1945 stopped designing, and the government set limits on how much nylon, wool, and other materials a woman could purchase to make her clothing. The reason why the 1940s rocked was because it rocked a woman's closet, because the war literally stopped the trends and she had to make do with the limited inspiration and fabric available as World War II raged. It was the absence of designers and these wartime restrictions that forced women to adopt, improvise, and get creative when it came to choosing their wardrobe. Despite restrictions, awesome trends still emerged from the decade, and some of these styles are quite essential pieces in the modern woman's closet today. When the war ended, so did restrictions on fashion. Christian Dior introduced the new look. The new look consisted of long feminine dresses with long full skirts and tight waists. It also had comfortable low-heeled shoes, which were forsaken for high heels. Hair was curled high on the head in front and worn on the shoulders in the back, and makeup was socially acceptable. Glamorous Rita Hayworth made the sweater look popular. They took time to put the new look together, time the women now had as the men returned to their jobs in the factories and offices after World War II. This first newspaper article, it states a short notice on the population growth of babies. It appeared in Yank some 5 months prior to VJ Day, announcing that the U.S. Census Bureau has figured out that unlike World War I, this conflict has conjured up 6 babies for every soldier and sailor killed in battle. This event famously came to be known as the baby boom. These babies were later known as the baby boomers. It was made in the article at Yank magazine in 1945, and the article was called Baby Boom, Here Come the Hippies. The population growth of babies was drastically different than those of World War I. In this newspaper article, it states that entertainment was given to those troops fighting in the Second World War. This article was made by Leonard Leons in 1944 and called it Entertaining the Troops. This article saluted the dedicated entertainers who traveled in the most remote corners of the globe in an effort to bring a smile to the lips of those far-flung members of the American military who were engaged in the grim task of bringing the Second World War to an end. It is illustrated with 8 photographs depicting some of the chuckle monkeys, ballooters, and hams who are remembered as doing the lion's shame of entertaining. This article ends in a solemn note listing the names and talents of 7 men and women who were killed on their tours. The article states that Japan launched a surprise attack against the U.S. forces stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on Sunday, December 7th, 1941. By planning his attack on a Sunday, the Japanese commander Admiral Nagumo hoped to catch the entire fleet in port. Luck would have it that the aircraft carriers and one of the battleships were not in port. In spite of the latest intelligence reports about the missing aircraft carriers, Admiral Nagoma decided to continue the attack with his force of 6 carriers and 423 aircrafts. At a range of 230 miles north of Oahu, he launched the first wave of a two-wave attack. Beginning at 0600 hours, his first wave consisted of 883 fighters and torpedo bombers, which struck at his fleet in Pearl Harbor and the airfields in Hickam, Kanoan 1, and Iwa. The second strike, launched at 715 hours, consisted of 167 aircraft, which again struck at the same target. At 0753 hours, the first wave, consisting of 40 Naka Igma B-5 Nintu Kate torpedo bombers, 51 Aichi D-3A1 Val, and dive bombers, 50 high-altitude bombers, and 43 Zero struck airfield and Pearl Harbor. Within the second hour, the second wave arrived and continued the attack.